Hello, I'm Victor Vogel. I'm normally talking to you about my book, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone and Security and Safety, but I really don't want to talk about that this evening. What I'm really interested in discussing is what's going on in our country. And I want to offer up my thoughts and opinions about it and hopefully offer up um, some helpful hints that I feel uh, would make our country work better and specifically focusing those towards Congress. First of all, I would say for everyone who hears or has seen Trump voters and Trump supporters support Trump, even when it's fairly obvious that his videos and his tweets and everything are contradictory or maybe downright lies. We want to be careful not to be too harsh on people when we judge. We shouldn't judge anyway, but certainly if you're going to make a judgment, try to keep in mind that most people who voted for Donald Trump probably voted less for Donald Trump, knowing his business background, and more for the fact of his campaign promises to make change. And if he doesn't make this change, that doesn't leave a very good alternative for those voters out there, unfortunately. So, uh, one thing we got to be really careful about is being judgmental of those folks. Now, having said that, there are some things I think that are going on right now that distract us from becoming a better country than we can be, regardless of who's president. And the first thing is, I believe everyone, the media in particular, people in general, world dignitaries, all put too much emphasis on the president. In this case, they're putting too much emphasis on Donald Trump. Unfortunately, he's getting it from both sides. His trips out into Saudi Arabia and around are drawing attention, but also his investigation relative to corruption in the election with the Russians. But to be honest with you, um, that's not the biggest issue. Certainly, the Russian issue is something we ought to investigate and stop. Okay, but it's been happening a long time, by the way, and it's happening not just here but everywhere. So, in the scope of what it's going to take to help us out here in America, the presidency is not something the media and everybody ought to be focusing on. In their wisdom, our forefathers developed this country into three distinct separate entities with equal powers as a checks and balances. You had the executive branch with the president and all his staff. You have the Congress with the House of Representatives and Senate, and you have the Supreme Court or the judicial system. So, out of all of those, the one that can have the greatest impact, the one that is, I believe, the most powerful and certainly has the greatest opportunity for change is Congress. And let me just point out a few things that I think are going wrong in that area. First of all, we have to think about Congress the way it's operating now, and then you can recognize sort of why the people who voted for Trump who are expecting and hoping for him to make that change. Unfortunately, I don't think he's a leader to do that, but but it doesn't necessarily take the president to do that. Uh, first of all, let's think about Congress. Congress is made up of individuals who are representing a small constituent of people in many cities and many states. Um, and they currently, right now, are focused on doing whatever it takes to help people to uh, get something better going on in their districts or whatever. So it's a small, and if you take that then and think about that, you've got that happening in all 52 states and a multitude of cities by all of these members of both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And if you try to bring that together and get something that fit all of those needs, it's pretty obvious that's downright impossible to do. So you're already at odds. Now, what complicates that even more is if you take that micro level up a notch to a macro level, you then develop these parties who you feel like represent the vast majority of the people in your district. And they have certain philosophies like the conservative Republican Party and the more liberal Democratic Party. There's different philosophies, and they have different points of view about what will work or what won't work to make the country better. And so already we're operating at a divide. So then when you unbalance that divide, now think about this. The forefathers developed our country um, uh, with three separate, distinct, equally balanced powers. And a concept surrounding trust is the idea that whoever, let's take two people, when each of the people have the same ability to do harm to each other, you have a balance of power, and consequently, it opens the door for trust. Okay, when one of those becomes unbalanced, then all of a sudden that opportunity for trust dissolves or it certainly lessens. So they were pretty wise putting this program together this way, trying to get people to figure out how to trust each other a little more. Now, uh, and to build trust within our government. Now, why do we need a government? We need a government because if you tried to get all of these 52 states with the multitude of cities and the multitudes of people all having different needs together and take resources that are collected and try to solve everybody's problems, it'd be worse than one big fight. It would be a really Donnybrook. It would be one of those situations that's almost irreconcilable. And I'm afraid that's where we're moving towards if we continue down this path. So let's think about what a solution might be to this. First of all, let's focus away from the president. Let's not try to put the president in the center of all this, and let's focus on Congress because there is where the vast majority of things can happen. They make the laws, and they can change the laws based on what the needs of the country are at the time. And keep in mind, we're a growing country. We're not what we were in 1776. We're not what we were 50 years ago. We're not what we were 20 years ago. We're a different country, and we're different because the mix of who we are is changing, and the people or the world around us is changing. So we can't stay the same. So we need a government to kind of oversee our change processes so that the vast majority of the country benefits from this area. And therein lies the problem. Uh, it is the role that our congressmen perceive they have. They perceive their role as to satisfy their constituents in their district and get reelected. Uh, but even if that's there, and again, then to try to support their party at that macro level, like I said. Now, the problem with that is the about the only way they see they can do this, and probably maybe the only way you could just with that kind of mentality is to compromise, and that is for one party to give up something that they have, that they value, and the other party and accept something the other party is offering as a compromise, so that we can get off a dead center and move forward a little bit. And each of these compromises we're trying to expand out and get to a common goal, but we never ever get there. And we never get there because compromise by definition is a lose-lose approach to things. In other words, you can't you can't ever get to the compromising perspective where it gets the best of all things. Particularly, and another dynamic we're having to deal with here that's a real barrier, is you have one party, the Republican Party, who has a vast majority of control in this country. Unfortunately, you can see even within that, that doesn't take away the conflict when you assume your role is self protecting. Because even with a party that has a dominant power, you still have those people who differ in terms of their constituents down below them, and you still have the fighting and the bickering going on. So the issue here becomes, in my mind, pretty simple. It's what we used to do when companies would call us and tell us, "Hey, look, we're having a lot of problem moving forward. There's a lot of blockage. People are fighting about this and that. We just don't seem to be getting anything done." And we would go in and do some assessments and evaluate the situation. And of course, we knew what the problem was, but the assessments helped the people to wake up amongst themselves and see what's going on. So, and really what happens is they recognize that this compromise concept or this protectionist attitude resulting in compromised decision making is virtually a stagnating process. It's a lose lose environment. So we then begin to teach them the concepts of effective team building so we can build high performance teams. So that, say, five departments, instead of fighting amongst each other for resources and power, etc., we begin to focus them on what the primary objective of their work is, and that's to make the company successful by either improving sales and profits or improving customer satisfaction or improving their technology or safety and security, whatever that is. In fact, it may be a combination of all of those things. So that the company can be more competitive, their jobs can be more secure, and more opportunities out there. Now, that's not much different than what we want our government to do for us. Okay, so the problem becomes uh, when people don't understand their roles and they don't understand the value of collaboration and the process and operating as a unified team towards a common goal. And if you can get that established, if we could get Congress just to take a breather, step back, take a breather, relax, and reassess your role. Yes, you have constituents who elect you out there, but that's not your primary role. Your primary role is to take that information that you have from your constituents, and then all the representatives gather all of the information from all the constituents, come back into Congress, and begin to decide the, a few things that would benefit all of this country if it was developed and happened effectively. Now let's take an example that everybody can live with and understand. Uh, we, we were trying to improve communication, so the Silicon Valley companies, of course, they think in collaborative terms. They allow a lot of participation, a lot of involvement. They think in those terms, and consequently, up pops a smartphone, an iPhone at that point, and then smartphones, a bunch of them fell in behind it. Why? Because the country had this tremendous need to gather more information faster. And in fact, they may have even created that need for the country through that phone and opened up opportunities that people didn't even realize were available out there. And the internet's also an example of that same process. So they didn't think of themselves as one group against the other group. They thought of themselves, hey, if we put all our minds together with all the information we collect from everybody we know, and we start thinking about what is it that's out there that needs to be in place that will solve a need that we have out there, and we all collectively get in behind it, we're going to generate an idea that's better than anything that's floating out there right now. Okay, and that's how Silicon Valley came up with the smartphone process. uh, that's what our government needs to do. You need to take a breather before you walk in and sit down in your congressional seats in the Capitol. You need to take off your badge of Republican or Democrat or Independent or whatever and leave it in the hallway. And when you walk through the doors, you need to refocus your purpose about who you really are, what your role really is. It's not to serve your constituents back in your area. It's to use the information the constituents provide you. Collectively put all of that information together, and and as a congressional group, as an you you then put that information together and decide what are the critical things we need to be working on that we can resource and return back to the people so they can live healthy and comfortable lives, have prosperity and grow, and be safe and secure out there. Okay, those are three just big categories. Now, how can you do that? Uh, in in sort of, we can take a look at how this impacts this whole president evaluation process in the Congress. Uh, First of all, let's pick something that is big out there, that if you went out and spoke to all the constituents across the country, there is some variance, but one of those areas is healthcare. Okay, people want to know they can get healthcare. If you got everybody in a room in the country and all the Congress and all the White House and even Supreme Court judges, if we got everybody together and you ask the question, is health care important to you? You're going to get an answer that checks yes. And then the next thing they're going to ask you is, now it may vary from younger to older, it may vary for a lot of reasons, but the general answer is going to be yes. And the next one's going to be, is affordable health care important to you? And yeah, yeah, certain, absolutely, that's a yes check. And then the last question is quality health care important to you? And the answer is going to be yes. So guess what, Congress? It's pretty simple. You're on the right track here, okay? Affordable, quality health care is important to every one of your constituents everywhere in this country, okay? It's important. It's very important to them to have a quality of life, okay? So if it's that important, then you don't need to service any one set of constituents. You simply need to get together the information you need, and then both all of the congressional group with a new role. The new role is American representative. The American representative. Okay, so now that healthcare program doesn't become Obamacare, it doesn't become Trump care, it doesn't become democratically driven or developed, or it doesn't become Republican driven or developed. It becomes American driven and developed. What's right for everyone in this country, whether you can afford it or not afford it, whether you, no matter what your age might be, no matter what your health state might be, even if you're illegal. I don't care. The real issue becomes, how can we get it out there for everybody in a reasonable cost, and it be a quality product that everybody can have, not just say accessible, but everybody gets, so that we can have a country where people envy living here because healthcare is high quality and it's affordable. Now, that can happen, and trust me on this. I believe I would be willing to just about bet anything. I don't have a whole lot anyway, because I didn't have health care for 7 years, by the way. But here's the deal. If if forget, I'm sorry, not Republicans, if American Congress people got together and both the whole group, okay, I keep wanting to go back. It's been ingrained in me for so long, and this concept just really excites me now. If everyone got together and they all agreed this is the plan we need to go forward with, now I'm pretty sure Donald Trump would sign that bill. If he didn't, he'd be an idiot. And I can't guarantee that he would do that based on some of the things he's done in the past recently. But I'll tell you this, I believe he would sign it. And if he would sign it, that would be good for him, it would be good for Congress, and most of all, it would be good for every citizen who's living within the United States. Okay? That's critical. That's important. That's big. That's humongous. That's something you guys can tie your wagon to, and you can be seen as heroes with this. What's preventing that from happening? The fact that you got your roles wrong. Your roles you got your roles focused on your party, you got your roles focused on your constituents, and you don't have your roles focused on me and everyone else out here in this country who really needs your help in putting that together in a way we can have, and I mean really have and use. Now, to do that, you can't do that on your own. When you go to your little subcommittees and all that, and you start putting this together and that together, and you start writing language that you need 7 different levels of attorneys to interpret it. It gets confusing. You need simple language. You need to bring some people in to help you write this program. You need to bring people who have never had or couldn't have health insurance. And you need to understand the impact that has on them and why it's important to hear what they say about this. You need to bring in businesses to see how that impacts the business, how they can not only just make it affordable for them, but also make it a competitive advantage. That's what it used to be years ago. It used to be the companies could work this around and use it as a competitive advantage in terms of what they offered. You need to bring in insurance companies because insurance companies need to understand you can't go out there and rake people off. You've got to have a sense of concern for people as an insurance company. And you can't be all money. It's got to be a concern to help those who can't afford it, to help those who are sick with pre-existing conditions, and you just can't say no to them. And if you do, you shouldn't be in the insurance business, okay? Yeah, you need those insurance companies to come out and figure out how to do that. And right now it looks pretty insurmountable, but you know what? Insurmountable is not a word that Silicon Valley knows. Okay, so it's not a word we should know about healthcare. There is a way to fix it. There is a way to make it work for everyone's benefit. You just have to collaborate and put a lot of ideas on the table and not put in barriers. Put ideas on the table and then work through those ideas so everybody agrees to them. So you can't do this on your own. You got to bring people in that are impacted by this program to help you make to help you give you the ideas and make the decisions you need to make within those committees. Don't make them behind closed doors and walnut walls and chairs, soft chairs and stuff. Bring them in. Bring the people in there. The people who have the guts, feelings to share with you in this process. Okay, that's what's our problem now. It's not President Trump. The fact is, if we could move this stuff on, he would sign bills. He would be looking better and better every day. And maybe he would learn this same concept. The idea that if you pull together everyone in common goals and directions, we could have a better defense structure. We could have better relationships with everyone. We could make sure people are protected and people were willing to communicate and share with us intelligence and things like that. These are all parts of what we as a country can have if Congress moves effectively. Now, these are just my thoughts and my ideas, but I do know they've worked in business. You can probably pick up the phone and call any Silicon Valley person, and they're going to tell you that's how they do business. So, if you really want Congress, if you really want our government to change, and trust me, the Trump voters do, but not only the Trump voters, the other voters who didn't vote for Trump want the government to change too. No, don't kid yourself. We all want you guys to change. You just need to stop, take a breath, assess why it hasn't worked, take some advice, look at it, change your role from being a representative of constituents in a party to one of being a representative of America who uses your constituents and parts of your party to bring information to the table for the benefit of all of us. I'm asking you to do this. I'm praying you will do this. I will pray for you to do this and will continue to do so. So those are my thoughts. I hope the video finds its way somewhere to Congress. I don't know if it will or not. I'm not, a person. Obviously, I don't have great video technical skills and stuff. But I'll tell you this: this is what's wrong with what's going on, and and hopefully you can recognize it. I've seen it work in companies. I've watched it work in technology and other industries. There is no reason except sheer greed or pettiness or self-centeredness that would keep this from working in the Congress of the United States. And that would be a very, very powerful change to make if we start there. Don't worry about the president. Okay, don't worry about the Supreme Court. Start with the Congress. They make the laws. They represent the vast majority of people. They have the opportunity for the greatest opportunity for growth. And we don't need a baseball cap that says make America great. We don't need to brand America. America's already great. America's always been great. We falter, but we recover. And this is our opportunity to do this. When you brand America, I think you cheapen it a little bit. But, you know, I love the idea. I love the idea that we can do this. So please uh, take this information as it's offered, which is caring and concern and love for my country and for all those in it, and an opportunity and my government. So please take some opportunity to step back and breathe and look through this. May God bless you. God bless America, and God bless us all. We need it.